Imagine the first human footprints on wet sand, a living map of our world's beginning. At dawn, a family halts at a narrow strait, the wind tasting of salt. They cross, a child clutching a piece of carved bone, stepping into an unknown future. As the great ice withdrew, a revolutionary idea took root: to plant and to stay. A surplus of grain gave rise to villages, which grew into towns and states. In the fertile bends of the Nile and on the high terraces of the Andes, shared water and common rules began to turn strangers into neighbors. With surplus came complexity, and with complexity, the need for a new tool, the written word. On smoothed clay tablets, grain counts became laws, and laws became the architecture of authority. In Mesopotamia, kings bargained with priests for power, while the gridded streets of the Indus Valley hinted at an unseen civic order. Farther east, along the Yellow River, scribes marked the rhythms of time and the mandates of rule. And as traders and pilgrims moved, so did beliefs and philosophies, weaving the first threads of a global conversation. These threads became trade routes. Caravans conquered the Sahara, monsoon sails tamed the Indian Ocean, and the fabled Silk Roads carried not just goods, but new ways of thinking. How else could pepper from a distant coast transform the menus of kings? These ancient connections are the blueprint for our modern world, shaping our shelves and our headlines. But they carried more than silk and spices. Disease traveled these same paths, and in the 14th century, a pandemic bent thrones and rewrote the fates of empires. Then, the known world's horizon shattered. In the late 15th century, ships crossed the abyss, binding old continents to the Americas in a collision of worlds. The exchange that followed remade life on a global scale. Maize and potatoes reshaped diets and fueled populations, while invisible microbes decimated others, carried on breath to unready lungs. It was a swap that reordered power, emptied villages, and drew the lines of the world we still inhabit today. This new, interconnected world would soon be ignited by another kind of power. Dawn in Manchester. The very air trembles with the rhythm of machines. A factory worker breathes air thick with oil and lint, her life governed by the shriek of a steam whistle. Steam and then electricity transformed workshops into factories and villages into sprawling cities. The descendant of that bone-clutching child now rides rails to work. The pace of life itself accelerated. With new speed came new identities, new demands, and the foundations of the old political order began to crack. From these crowded cities, new ideas erupted. National flags rallied millions, while liberal and socialist voices argued over the meaning of rights and the price of bread. Women demanded the vote. The enslaved and their allies forced the chains of bondage to break, and colonized peoples fought for their own future. But the same energy that forged nations could also tear them apart. By 1914, these tangled alliances turned city boulevards into battle lines. 2 world wars and a global depression left scars across the planet, redrawing borders in blood. The horrors of genocide revealed how modern systems could be used for precise, industrial-scale cruelty. After 1945, as old empires crumbled, a Cold War divided the world, staging its contests in classrooms, laboratories, and the vastness of space. In the final decades of the century, the pace quickened yet again. Fiber optic cables now bind continents in an instant, making the planet feel tightly linked. But this proximity reveals new strains. Climate change presses on us all, and pandemics remind us of our shared vulnerability. The wealth generated by this global system flows unevenly, widening the gap between the fortunate and the forgotten. This history is not distant. The phone in your hand, the news on your screen, The very weather outside your window, all are echoes of that first age of steam. Debates over artificial intelligence and genetic editing are modern versions of ancient struggles over power and progress. We are the inheritors of this entire sprawling story. The next chapter is unwritten, and the question it asks is ours to answer. How do we navigate this legacy as the world continues to accelerate around us?